Hello, friends. Hitchhiking can be of great help sometimes. But unfortunately, not all hitchhikers always have the best intentions. Sometimes hitchhiking has been used to orchestrate real horrors. Today, I present to you a tragic case that shows us the dark side of the world we live in. The night was dark and stormy, and I found myself driving alone on a desolate stretch of highway that seemed to go on forever. The rain lashed against my windshield like a relentless barrage of needles, and the only sounds were the drumming of the rain and the steady hum of my car's engine. I had been on the road for hours, a journey that had led me further and further into the depths of isolation. The storm showed no signs of letting up, and I had lost all sense of time and place. My GPS had long since lost signal, and my cell phone was nothing more than a useless brick. I was on my own, with no other cars in sight and no landmarks to guide me. Panic was gnawing at the edges of my mind, but I couldn't bring myself to turn back. I had a destination in mind, a town I couldn't quite remember the name of, but one that had beckoned to me like a siren's call. The road twisted and turned, a serpentine path through a dark and foreboding forest. Each curve seemed to lead me deeper into the wilderness, away from civilization and into the heart of the unknown. It was a choice I would come to regret, a decision made in the throes of restlessness and a desire for escape. As the minutes turned into hours, my unease grew. The relentless rain showed no sign of abating, and the storm had become a tempest, an angry beast that seemed determined to keep me in its clutches. I was lost, both in terms of direction and purpose, and the isolation was taking its toll on my sanity. And then, as I rounded yet another curve, my headlights pierced through the wall of rain and illuminated a figure standing at the edge of the road. My heart leaped into my throat as I instinctively hit the brakes. A hitchhiker, a solitary figure with their thumb extended, soaked to the bone in the unforgiving downpour. Common sense screamed at me to keep driving. The stories of hitchhiker horrors had always been a staple of campfire tales, and I had heard my fair share of them. But the sight of the drenched, shivering stranger tugged at my conscience. How could I leave someone stranded in this tempestuous night? With a hesitant sigh, I pulled over to the side of the road, the rain hammering against my car like a relentless percussionist. The hitchhiker approached slowly, his silhouette growing clearer with each step. His face was hidden beneath the hood of a tattered jacket. I watched him warily, my hand inching towards the door lock. "Need a ride?" I called out, my voice trembling slightly. The hitchhiker didn't respond with words but nodded, his face still hidden in the shadows of his hood. He climbed into the passenger seat without a word, his presence casting an immediate chill throughout the car. "Where are you headed?" I asked, trying to sound friendly despite the growing unease that gnawed at me. "Anywhere," came the raspy reply, barely audible over the relentless rain. With a sinking feeling in my chest, I pulled back onto the road, resuming our journey into the stormy night. The hitchhiker sat in eerie silence, his hood still concealing his face. Every attempt at conversation met with short, cryptic responses that did nothing to ease my growing discomfort. Minutes turned into hours, the winding road leading us further into the heart of the forest. The storm showed no mercy, and the relentless rain was now accompanied by distant rolls of thunder that shook the car. The hitchhiker's silence was punctuated only by the occasional whispering and muttering under his breath, words that I couldn't quite make out. As the storm raged on, a sense of dread settled over me like a heavy shroud. I couldn't shake the feeling that something was terribly wrong. The hitchhiker's presence had become oppressive, his very existence a malevolent force that seemed to weigh down on me. A flash of lightning briefly illuminated the car's interior, revealing the hitchhiker's face. What I saw made my blood run cold. His eyes were pitch black, devoid of any white or color. They stared at me, unblinking, as if peering into my very soul. Panic surged through me, but I couldn't bring myself to stop the car in the middle of nowhere with this sinister stranger beside me. The storm raged on, the rain now lashing the car with a ferocity that matched my growing fear. The hitchhiker's presence became increasingly oppressive, and his whispering grew louder, like a twisted incantation. I strained to listen, desperate to make out the words, but they remained unintelligible. In the midst of the chaos, I caught a glimpse of something in my rearview mirror that sent a new wave of terror coursing through me. Red headlights. Eerily resembling glowing eyes flickered in the distance. They seemed to be drawing closer, despite the treacherous conditions of the road. The hitchhiker's muttered words grew more urgent, and a sense of dread overwhelmed me. I knew I had to act fast. Without warning, I veered off the road onto a narrow dirt path, hoping to lose the pursuing headlights. The hitchhiker's grip on the door handle tightened, and he hissed menacingly.
"What are you doing?"
he asked, his voice now a low growl. Ignoring him, I maneuvered the car deeper into the woods, the rain-soaked trees looming like spectral sentinels on either side. The pursuing lights followed, closing in rapidly. Panic seized me as I realized there was nowhere left to run. I stopped the car abruptly, throwing it into park. The hitchhiker let out a guttural scream, and his form began to contort and shift. I watched in horror as he transformed into a grotesque, nightmarish creature, a demon. The demon's eyes, now glowing with an otherworldly fire, locked onto mine. It spoke, its voice a discordant symphony of screams and whispers echoing in my mind.
"You have discovered my true nature,"
it hissed.
"Now you will pay."
I had no time to react before the demon lunged at me, its twisted form merging with mine. I screamed, as I felt its malevolent presence invade every corner of my being. It was as if a nightmare had come to life, a darkness that threatened to consume me whole. And then, as suddenly as it had begun, the world around me changed. I was no longer in my car, no longer on that rain-soaked road. I was in a nightmarish landscape, a hellscape of twisted trees and shadowy figures that seemed to writhe and contort in agony. The demon's voice echoed in my mind, a constant, tormenting presence.
"Welcome to your nightmare. This is your punishment for discovering my true form."
I tried to speak, to beg for mercy, but my voice was drowned out by the cacophony of screams and whispers that filled the air. I stumbled through the twisted landscape, my every step a struggle against the oppressive darkness that threatened to consume me. Hours turned into days, or perhaps it was an eternity. Time had lost all meaning in this nightmarish realm. I saw things, horrors beyond description, that defied logic and reason. I witnessed my own fears and insecurities made manifest, each one more terrifying than the last. And all the while the demon's voice whispered in my ear, a constant reminder of my torment.
"You will never escape this nightmare. You are mine now, forever."
I tried to resist, to fight back against the relentless darkness, but it was futile. The demon had taken control of my very soul, and there was no escape. I was trapped in a never-ending nightmare, a prisoner of my own fears and the malevolent entity that had taken possession of me. As the days turned into weeks and then into months, I became a hollow shell, a vessel for the demon's twisted desires. I did things, unspeakable things, that filled me with shame and horror. But I had no choice, no control over my own actions, and all the while, the demon reveled in my suffering, feeding off my fear and despair. It whispered its dark secrets into my mind, promising that there was no escape, no release from the nightmare that had become my existence. But then, one day, as I wandered through the nightmarish landscape, something changed. I felt a glimmer of hope, a flicker of resistance deep within me. It was small, almost imperceptible, but it was there, a spark of defiance that refused to be extinguished. With every ounce of strength left in me, I fought back against the demon's control. I pushed back against the darkness, refusing to succumb to its malevolence. It screamed and raged, but I held firm, determined to break free from its grip. And then, with a final desperate surge of willpower, I banished the demon from my mind. It shrieked and howled as it was forced out, its twisted form retreating into the shadows. I was free, but I knew that I was forever changed by the horrors I had witnessed and the darkness that had consumed me. I found myself back in my car on that rain-soaked road, as if no time had passed at all. The storm still raged outside, but the oppressive silence had lifted. I was alone, but I was no longer under the demon's control. As I drove on, shaken and scarred by my nightmarish ordeal, I couldn't help but wonder if the demon was still out there, lurking in the shadows, waiting for its chance to return. I knew that I would never be truly free of its malevolent presence, that it would always be a part of me, a dark shadow in the recesses of my mind. And so, I drove on, haunted by the memories of the nightmare that had consumed me, and the demon that had taken control of my very soul. I knew that I could never escape the darkness, that it would always be a part of me, a constant reminder of the horrors that lurked just beyond the car window. Thank you all for watching. Don't forget to subscribe and press the notification bell. See you again next time.